Hey guys, how's it going? Woody the Mortar Mauler here, bringing you some mortar games from the ladder. Gonna hop right into it. I've got a floating window set up here so that you can't see the results of the match beforehand, but I will be able to commentate on each of these matches. The first one is up against Frosty from Tempest. I start off with an aggressive mortar placed at the front here. Drop the princess to defend against the minions and get a nice start to the game. Enemy princess locks onto the mortar, preventing her from killing my own princess, who will trade in quite nicely as the mortar continues to chip away for damage, and the princess goes in for a shot herself. With an elixir advantage, I decide to make an aggressive push. Minor minion horde is the weapon of choice, but the fireball does do a great job at taking out that minion horde. My opponent chooses to soak all of the damage from this miner, though, and so that's going to bring his tower down to 535, while we both have the same amount of elixir, and I have a strong, commanding lead in the game. I start off again with another mortar line of attack, and see for the first time a cannon, very strong counter to the mortar. But that is going to get taken out by the mini P.E.K.K.A. And we go into a little bit of a stalemate period here where neither of us makes much of a connection, but we have some legendaries dueling in the center of the arena. He takes out my princess with some minions and goes in for an attack of his own. And so this is the first time that I'll play the minion horde to directly counter his minions. Zap would not have been enough from me. And without any other way of directly dealing with them, minions are my weapon of choice. Miner goes in to get that last little bit of damage that I need. And with a 1-0 advantage over Frosty, I've gone into defensive mode now. Just need to hold off for a little bit longer. Bit of a misplay from the tombstone on my part, so I do wind up soaking one hit from that mini P.E.K.K.A. But with a defensive posture of tombstone and mortar, I'm pretty well positioned to handle any of the small chipping attacks that he's done so far, and looks like I'm going to have a pretty easy time handling the small miner-based attacks that he's got coming in. Frosty tries to deal with the princess on the left by dropping minions and spreading out goblins and a mini P.E.K.K.A. on the right, but it's not going to be enough. Two mini P.E.K.K.A.s charging in, but Tombstone, one of the hard counters for mini P.E.K.K.A. and other slow, high damage units, will stop those in their tracks. The skeletons blocking for my own mini P.E.K.K.A. and with just a few seconds left in the game, I will close it out for the win and say good game to Mr. Andy. Make sure that window's floating again so we don't spoil the rest of the matches. And hop into a game against Kale from Team Canada. Kale Trudane gives a good luck. Good sportsmanship on both sides here. And looks like I lead with the mortar while he splits barbarians down the middle. A big commitment from him, though. The minion horde comes in to take out the mortar, but gets demolished by the princess combined with Zap. Mortar does not lock onto the tower, but it's going to do a good job of dealing with these barbarians going down both sides of the field. Bit of an overcommit from the Hog Rider. It wasn't really necessary to finish off that mortar, and as a result, I'm able to make a counterattack with a miner and mini P.E.K.K.A. to great effect. The Musketeer not quite enough to hold off that mini P.E.K.K.A. and it looks like he'll be going for a small counter push here, but minions fall to this Ice Wizard, and with that Musketeer distracted, I think that I had a pretty elixir-efficient counter to his line of play there. Prince comes in, and the Tombstone, once again, proves its salt. Tombstone winds up being a fantastic counter to all these troops that have really high damage attacks, but that get distracted easily by swarms. The fact that it's a building also makes it a great counter to Hog Rider, Balloon, Royal Giant, anything that's targeting directly onto buildings. So minions are the responsive choice. I see him overcommit and drop a big clump of elixir all at the same time. He does wind up showing me that he has arrows, and so I lose about half the tower since I wasn't able to finish the hog off quickly enough, but a decent response, and knowing what his deck is comprised of now, it's a little bit easier for me to formulate the rest of the defense and to prosecute the rest of this game against Kale Trudane from Team Canada. So seeing the arrows, I decide to play a princess in the back, and he shows now that he's got another spell. The poison's going to take the princess out, and I'm left a little bit hamstrung without any way of very clearly dealing with this minion horde he's dropped. Tombstone is an effective counter to the prince, but when he's backed up by the swarm like that minion horde, it's not going to be that easy. Minions take out the skeletons from the tombstone and get me down into triple digits. Pretty strong line of attack, but I am not deterred. I go on the counteroffensive and accidentally missed with the zap, intended to hit the musketeer. If I had done the zap on the musketeer, the mini P.E.K.K.A. would have probably finished her off. But once again, going back into defensive mode here, trying to prevent this prince from connecting, I managed to do so, and just with a few seconds left in the game, the minion horde on defense is not going to have enough time to reach my tower, and one of my own will make sure that any hog riders coming in would be wiped out. Next match that we're up against is Dark Assassin from Elite Gaming. Dark Assassin from Elite Gaming, one of the more popular clans in the competitive scene right now in Clash Royale. And he's one of their higher ranked members, running now a Royal Giant deck. Royal Giant typically quite well positioned to take out mortars. And so let's see how he plays in this game. I played my own princess to try to counter his to take out that princess and do a little bit of tower damage, but it turns out after making the positive exchange there with the arrows, he decides to go on the defensive. I drop a mini P.E.K.K.A., but he very quickly and expertly counters with barbarians, and this mortar is in a lot of trouble here. Supported with Furnace now, I can't really deal with these barbarians with any swarm troops, so I instead respond with an Ice Wizard to provide a little bit of a slow push and offer me the defensive opportunity that I need. Princess, well protected by the Fire Spirits, is not going to be able to break through, though. Miner gets it, and I'm going back to the small, defensive, slow, responsive type of game that I think is my advantage. Tombstone also showing that it can do quite well against the Furnace. The two skeletons hop out there and manage to block both of the oncoming Fire Spirits, but Dark Assassin says, no Tombstone for you, and fireballs it down. So we've essentially balanced out the game state again, and with a defensive Tesla from him, I decided to go on the offense with a Mortar and connect to another Furnace that he plays right out in front to block it. So I've got an Elixir advantage now. I'm going at him with a Mortar and an Ice Wizard, and I'm just ready and waiting for his next line of attack. He goes with Barbarians on the ground, and so I choose to show my hand and drop the Minion Horde, thinking I can sneak them in there and block that Tesla with the Miner, but he's quick on the draw with the arrows, and not this time. So as we go into double Elixir time, I'm 2 Elixir ahead of him, and he decides to go for a big Royal Giant push. I hadn't seen the Royal Giant yet that game, so I was a bit surprised by it. Didn't manage to lock onto the tower with my Mortar, and I'm in a tricky position here. The Furnace is backing up this Royal Giant, so I'm going to lose my Princess if I'm not careful here. So I choose to send my own Miner in to kill his Princess, and the Ice Wizard combined with the mini P.E.K.K.A. does a ton of damage and slowing on that Royal Giant, and I wind up taking only one shot. Barbs are going in now, but they are also stopped by all the splash damage I can create with this Princess. I take a swing or two maybe before heading back in with a Minion Horde. And this is where he gets a bit aggressive. The Fireball goes down on the tower instead of the Minion Horde, and as a result he loses that Royal Giant quite quickly to them. The Mortar on the counteroffensive is once again blocked by this Furnace. Not necessarily a bad line of play, but the Furnace is going to go down at the same time of the Mortar. And with that, I've got double legendaries again to defend against the barbarians. Trying to get a little bit of value out of this minion horde. I know it's going to get fireballed down, but they managed to take out the barbarians. I probably should have spread out my princess and my ice wizard a little bit more, but knowing that I've got a pretty good elixir advantage over him at that point, I decided to make a counter push again. I get the mortar to lock on, thank goodness, and get several good connections there with it. With just a tiny sliver of health left, it fires off one more shot to bring his tower to 195, 20 seconds left in overtime. I know that my best chance at winning is to get a miner somewhere on his tower, and so I play a mortar to defend against the Royal Giant, send my miner in, and do a pre-fire zap just in case he tries to play anything to block it there, but seeing nothing, it's a close game with 10 seconds left in overtime, but I prevail against Dark Assassin from Elite Gaming. Get our spoiler note back up again, and we're on to the next match against Urguan from the Turkish Republic. I'm comfortable leading off with the mortar here. I like having a princess and an ice wizard to back it up. Depending upon what he chooses to play, I'll likely do one of those. If he does have a prince or a mini P.E.K.K.A., I would have played my tombstone to defend, but seeing as I need that long range attack, I go with the princess in the middle and ice wizard on the right just to slow that witch down. I know that we're going to be getting skeletons in from that witch, so I needed a little bit more splash damage to deal with everything that I had there. Tombstone locked to the oncoming guards, and fortunately for me, I get one shot off in this princess by my own princess, and so I'm able to zap her down. At this point, we're even on elixir, and he makes a pretty aggressive pump placement here, making me think that he had more elixir than he really did. I misplay the miner. I had intended to play it onto the pump, but if I had accidentally played it a little bit too close to the king tower, I could have wound up activating the king tower. So the minion horde does make a connection, though, and wizard was his only response. I soak the wizard shots just to ensure that I have enough elixir to respond to whatever push he goes for next. And seeing nothing from him, decide to get a little bit more chip damage with my princess. 2 shots go in before the guards take her out. And I'm back on the defensive again. The slow-moving Ice Wizard with that stun, and or rather the freeze effect, and the AoE damage gives me the opportunity that I need to defend. I was hoping that the Ice Wizard was going to lock onto the princess, but did not happen. The skeleton spawned from that witch just in time, and the mini P.E.K.K.A. does not get another shot off, so I'm in trouble here now against Urguan. The Dark Prince combination with the Witch and Wizard break through, and I try to block with the Mortar, but no dice. Urguan breaks through and makes the first tower go down on my side. 60 seconds left, though, and only 476 damage left on his tower to do. I decide that I'm going to try to play it slowly. I think that I can get that damage in with a couple of minor attacks, and so I decide to defend the left side with an Ice Wizard and a Tombstone in the back. Seeing the P.E.K.K.A. though, that's a big commitment from him. I decided that it's time to throw a miner into the fray and to try to get some swings out there. His best response is the Princess, which can only do AoE damage. So I decide to continue along that line of thought and then soon switch over back to the left side to defend against this P.E.K.K.A. that's marching toward my base. Mortar gets quite a few pop shots off, I'm noticing now in the replay against the Witch and the Wizard, so happy to get that little bit of AoE damage in, but I've got to send in something to hit the right side tower. The miner that I committed earlier had to be used over there to try to prevent connection on the left side, so fortunately the mini P.E.K.K.A. that I played made it to the right side tower and took that down as he was continuing to push the left. So I'm on defensive now. I just got to survive for 50 more seconds of overtime. Mini P.E.K.K.A. doing an amazing job on defense against the splash units, while the Princess over here on the left is distracted by the Tombstone. I didn't really have much to play. I wanted to be responsive, so I just throw a Mortar out in front to tank some shots against Urguan. And I'm thinking at this point that I've only really got one more line of play that I can really try to do to win the game, and that would be to connect a minion horde to the tower. So as soon as I get a distraction on the Wizard, I send in a minion horde and a miner, zap the offending troops, and go for the kill. Get his tower down to 975, but it's not quite enough. And it looks like with the charging Dark Prince, I'm going to have to continue playing defensively. And with that, the game ends a 1-1 draw in the end of overtime. Slightly ahead on tower damage and sending in a minor mini P.E.K.K.A combo, but very well played by Urguan. And I don't manage to steal the win from him at the end there. Next match I'm playing, another Mortar player. Unfortunately, can't pronounce his name, but we both wish each other good luck and head into the game. With this hand, I don't really have any decisive line of attack. I can't do my Mortar, and I can't do my Minion Horde Miner, so I chose to go defensive at the beginning with an Ice Wizard in the back. Most people like to attack on the right side, so I'll defend primarily on the left side with this Ice Wizard. Unfortunately for me, though, Musketeer is a very good counter to the Ice Wizard, and so he's going to come in and try to get some damage off. And very surprised to see the Mortar coming in from him. Happy that Mortar's continuing to be played on the ladder, but not really sure how I was going to respond to it with my deck at the time. Turns out, though, Tombstone is a very good response to Mortar. Happy to give him the thumbs up, though, once I saw he played Mortar and had a chance to show him my own. Does a great job distracting the mini P.E.K.K.A and sending Fire Spirits over to kill it. The Mortar doesn't have enough damage to finish off this Musketeer, and so with that, I just have one little bit of chip damage that I get in on his left side tower from that Miner, and we're back to equalized playing field again. With me 2 elixir ahead, I start off slowly again with the Tombstone, just trying to get a sense for what his next line of play is so that I can counter it. So seeing the Mortar down, I decide to go quick and fast with the Minion Horde to try to take it out. But he's got a Knight to block and a Fireball to finish it off, so very well played by him. Ice Wizard, though, is going to slow down this Mortar, is going to tank shots from the Mortar, and it is soon no more. So with that Ice Wizard out in front and Skeletons backing it up from the Tombstone, I decide to play my own. Princess prevents this Musketeer from being able to get any damage, and we're now in a Mortar duel. His is going to lock onto the Skeletons, though. Once again, Skeletons showing how great they can be against Mortar. Just the slow, ticking troops are going to prevent him from locking on as my Mortar continues to hit his tower on the left side. Princess takes that Mortar out just in time, but he does have a very good response to this Minion Horde. Fire Spirits coming in now to finish them off. My Princess falls, and it looks like he's got a very strong Mortar trifecta with the mini P.E.K.K.A, Musketeer, and Mortar all deployed and ready to go. I block his attacks with my own Mortar and get ready to try to get a counteroffensive. With only 540 damage left on his tower, I decide that it's time to start getting some damage in from the Miner. Just need a little bit more ticking damage on him to be able to seal the deal here. So 10 seconds left before overtime. I set up another defensive Tombstone to block this mini P.E.K.K.A and Mortar, and send in a Minion Horde to finish off that Mortar so that I can safely go in for the kill with my Miner on the left. He does do a good job responding to the Miner, but a little bit too late. The Miner does lock onto the tower. The deploy time of that Miner just so short and quick enough to target what I needed him to. So with that, a well-played game, a Mortar duel. Always love seeing those. And with that, it's time to move on to the next match. I got the floating window up so that the results don't get spoiled, but let's head in to see how things go against the Beast from last level. The Beast running a Hog trifecta deck versus the Mortar deck from Woody the Mortar Mauler on the bottom. Careful line of play from him. The cannon goes down early, but unfortunately it's going to just soak shots from the Mortar rather than being able to fire back. I thought that mini P.E.K.K.A was going to get a little bit more value against the Valkyrie, but those level 10 rares are giving me some trouble. So I dropped the Tombstone to finish off the Musketeer, and we're back at baseline again. I'm behind 1 elixir from that exchange, but no tower damage, and I'm learning a little bit more about his deck as we go. Early pump, he wasn't at 10 yet, but he gives me an opportunity to try to send in a minor Minion Horde attack. I screw up the Miner deployment though and don't wind up hitting the pump, and that max level zap is enough to finish off the minions in one hit. So basically my minions are going to be useless this game, unfortunately. And I'm back to defense now, having to deal with this Valkyrie. I start to get a little bit of damage off with the Princess, and don't have quite enough time to pull the Hog over with my Tombstone. I'm left trying to defend against two big tanky heavy units that have a lot of health, and wind up not being able to adequately prevent this Hog from connecting with the tower. I could have deployed a mini P.E.K.K.A. right at the end to try to block another swing, but I'm pretty convinced that I'm going to lose that tower, seeing as his poisons would probably be enough to take it out. So instead, I try to go on the counteroffensive. While that left tower is still up, I deploy a mortar. Thinking he's going to counter with cannon, I drop my own mini P.E.K.K.A. And do successfully take that out. So the mortar locks on with about 60% of its health left. Probably going to get about 3 shots off. But I don't have a tombstone to draw this Hog Rider away, and with the poison down, I lose the left side tower, and the Beast takes an early 1-0 lead as we enter double elixir time. With a trifecta on my side of the field, the only thing that I can really think of to get some damage in is the minion horde. I know he can zap it, but fortunately for me, the reaction time there is not quite quick enough to keep his Valkyrie alive. I'm banking on the fact now that I can get some damage in here with the mortar and defend with the mini P.E.K.K.A., but the cannon adequately takes out the mortar, and this Valkyrie, very well placed by him, combined with the zap, is enough to remove my offensive units. And with only 30 seconds left in overtime in the game, it's looking pretty bad for Woody the Mortar Mauler over here. The best way would be to try to get a little bit of extra chip damage off against that left tower, and so that's what I'm going to go for. But with the poison down to kill all of my supporting units and the Hog Rider murdering my poor mortar, it's not looking like that line of attack is going to work. 523 health left on my King Tower. I'm just resorting to some pretty desperate tactic here, which unfortunately do not work. So the Beast from last level, very well played, triumphs over Woody the Mortar Mauler in a decisive match for the Hog Trifecta deck. Next up, though, we have Hay from Framatome. So let's hop into that game and see how it goes. Royal Giant and Inferno Tower, very big tanky deck that Hay from Framatome is playing. But good games, good lucks from both sides, and let's see how things go. I start off with a Mortar, and seeing an Ice Wizard from him, choose to drop a Princess to get a little bit of chip damage in, and a mini P.E.K.K.A. to finish that guy off. Arrows come in to kill the Princess, but not before the Mortar locks onto the tower, and that'll get a couple of shots off, in the very least. Witch finishes it off, and now I'm waiting to see if he's going to back this Witch up with anything. Seeing no backup, the Tombstone is going to prevent that Witch from locking onto the tower, distract the little skeletons, and with just a few hit points left, I decide that it's time to make the best use of this skeleton barrage that I'm going to get and send in a miner, but a bomber comes in as a surprise and finishes off my poor little skeleton group. Seeing he has a lot of ground splash damage from the bomber, I use my minions to take out this Royal Giant and Ice Wizard to finish off his bomber and his Ice Wizard. Unfortunately, his Ice Wizard wasn't quite yet in range of my tower, so I lose mine, and I'm going to have to find another way to get back at him. But I'm ahead in tower damage right now, and ahead by 1, or maybe 2 in elixir rather, and decide that the next line of attack, now that the Royal Giants have just been played, it's time to get the mortar in there, and I play Princess to defend, and unfortunately he's got goblins in there which do a great job against taking out my mini P.E.K.K.A. Arrows go down to hit both the tower and the Princess, and he's back on the offensive, but in the meantime I got a shot or 2 off with the mortar. His tower now below half health while mine still is above 2k, so at just a 1 elixir disadvantage, I'm back on the defense and biding my time to make another assault on him. Tombstone is the slow, easy option, non-committal, and lets me take a few shots from this Ice Wizard while my minion horde finishes off this Royal Giant. Mortar distracts, and I'm really just going for the chip damage at this point. I send in the miner and have Princess on my own side to take out all these little units that he's got. Mini P.E.K.K.A. goes in to finish off these bigger units, but unfortunately the skeleton spawn from that Witch distracts, so I get into a tricky spot here, lots of splash damage incoming. So I've got to wait for them to lock onto the tower before I can deploy my minion horde to kill this giant royal giant, now distracted by the opposing units. Incoming miner connects with the tower and distracts just enough for these zapped minions to make it in, though, and take down that tower. A 1-0 advantage. I put up a mortar to defend against any royal giants that might decide to walk my way. And with that, and a few seconds left, I close out the game 1-0, tossing the good game. Well played, Mr. Hay from Framatome, or Miss Hay, as the case may be. So let's see what's up next. Chief X from Nova UK3 has got, looks like a Zap or Aerobait deck. Going to be trying to make a lot of little poke and proddy attacks and then connect with the Hog Rider to get that tower damage. So he starts off Mini P.E.K.K.A flanked by all of these spirits. Minion Horde does quite a bit of damage to the ground units, but the Zap goes off just in time to finish off that Minion Horde, combined with the damage that he got from the Ice Spirits. I'm a couple elixir ahead of him and suffered a little bit of tower damage, so overall, maybe just a little bit behind. But playing defensively and waiting for him to make a move, he goes in with Hog Rider and Goblins, perhaps thinking that I don't have any more splash damage, but the dual legendary team does the trick, and seeing that he's done damage to the left side, I want to try to push his right side, so I've got the princess on the right side over there, but in his favor, a princess on defense, and the Ice Wizard takes out my princess, so I'm forced to zap his princess down, and maybe shouldn't have done that, knowing that he has a zap bait deck. That might have been the wrong play, but I draw this hog off and get the damage that I need with the Mini P.E.K.K.A and decide that with this little group going in, it's time to throw a miner in the mix. Unfortunately, the miner doesn't make it there in time to defend my Mini P.E.K.K.A, and I get a little bit of chip damage off of here. My level 3 princess, hashtag overpowered, manages to kill his princess just with that little bit of damage that he got earlier. And we've pretty much balanced out health on our towers. He's about 100 damage ahead of me on the left, but with a 3 elixir advantage, I know it's time to set up for a bigger push. Mortar's going to go in on the left over here, backed up by the Ice Wizard likely, and a zap to finish off these minions. And he chooses to continue on now with the Hog Rider, but not before I get a few swings off with the Mortar. Skeleton's doing a fantastic job at taking that Hog Rider out. And once again, we're balanced on the field, but in my favor, a little bit more elixir and about 500 more damage on the tower. Fire Spirits get absolutely obliterated by this princess as the Mini P.E.K.K.A moves in, gets a couple swings off on the Mortar, but the Mortar was not going to go down without a fight, gets a shot off on the tower, and it's looking like I have a pretty strong miner to take out his princess as I get more chip damage in here. Dangerous spot here, though. Minion Horde coming in. I don't have any zap to deal with it, so I've got to spread out my legendaries to get the splash damage that I need to prevent him from connecting. The Hog Rider does make it to the tower, though, but being frozen and taken down with this Mini P.E.K.K.A, he doesn't have much of an opportunity to respond. 15 seconds left before double elixir time. I get the zap in to make sure that my miner has enough health left to finish off that tower, and Chief X giving us the sad face, but very well played from the player from Nova UK3, and managed to take this game a 1-0 victory over Chief X. So the last and final match for this video will be against Harkos from Kingdom Hearts. We see he's got a giant skeleton, big, pretty heavy pushing deck with Musketeer, Archers, Pump, Barbarians, Valkyrie, Miner, and Zap to round out the remaining lineup. Harkos from Kingdom Hearts says good luck back to him, and don't really have a very strong attacking hand to begin with, so I start off with Tombstone. He also plays very slowly, starting off with the Elixir Pump in the back to get an Elixir advantage over me. So while that's up, I decide to go for a Miner to take out the Pump and a Mortar to try to provide 2 lines of attack against him. The Mortar locks on to the tower and starts firing off against it, wishing that my Mini P.E.K.K.A had gone over to kill the Miner instead of sacrificing herself to the barbarians. But Ice Wizard, lot of splash damage on defense. Decide to support it with the princess since the barbarians split up. And with just one princess ticking away at my tower, Harkos manages to equalize tower damage at just about 2,500 each, while being 3 ahead on Elixir, but the princess on my side of the field gives me a little bit of an Elixir response against him. Tombstone blocks this giant skeleton, though, and with this Musketeer coming in, I'm knowing that there's only one way for me to be able to respond to all this damage that's about to happen. It's a minion horde. The Flyers go in, do their job, and with a zap on the only response that Harkos has, they manage to connect with the tower. Again, though, I had misplayed my miner right on the inside wall there, so he was soaking damage from both towers, but that minion horde connection was almost enough to finish him off. With just 274 damage left, I decided to go for a defensive mortar. Very slow playing here, just trying to make sure that he doesn't get any significant connection with barbarians or something like that. With the pump down, I know he's not going to be going for any big pushes anytime soon, so I finish off that tower with a princess and let her continue on toward the pump. One swing is going to take off probably 1 elixir worth of damage, and Miner comes in to deal with that, but it's blocked by the tombstone. So once again, we're both at 10 elixir. He's got the pump up, but going to be pretty hard pressed to get in for the attacks that he needs. Knowing that his best AoE spell is the zap, I send in the Miner to finish off that pump, and a minion horde to try to get a little bit more damage in. He makes a big commitment to the left side, though, with this Miner and Barbarian group coming in, but the tower is enough to finish off this little bit of health that they have left, and I send in the Ice Wizard Mini P.E.K.K.A. on the right to get that damage in that I need against the giant skeleton. Again, he just doesn't have the spells that he needs to be able to finish off my minions, so they do a great job of killing the giant skeleton and keeping me pretty healthy on the right side. One last giant skeleton comes in, but we're not going to let it connect to the tower at all. The last line of attack from him is a Miner, as the mortar on the left side ticks away at the archers and the giant skeleton on the left. He throws up the happy face and starts laughing, but it was a well-played, good game. And with that, want to thank everyone for tuning in. Those are the final matches that I'm going to be streaming for now, and hope that you appreciated them. Let me know what you thought of the matches in the comments section below. Toss me a subscribe if you want to see more Mortar gameplay, and like and share the video with anyone you think might be interested in Woody the Mortar Mauler and this deck list built with Mortar, Minion Horde, Miner for the main offensive win conditions, and some great defense provided by Tombstone, Zap, and the 2 legendary cards, Princess and Ice Wizard. So with that, thanks again, and see y'all later.